so much.
Hello. So my name is Kim Frederick, and I am the Chief Program Officer at JVS SoCal. I've been there for about 10 years, and during that time, I've had the opportunity to expand our Veteran Services program to include rapid rehousing, and also had the opportunity to expand our career training programs to include a new Earn and Learn program called Imaging Works that we offer in partnership with RadNet. JVS SoCal, let's see, we're just a little bit over 90 years old, and I thought we had a really long history and legacy, which we do. However, the Urban League really outdid us there. That's what I'm learning. So it makes me feel young. We're a young organization there. But anyway, we started, our history goes back to, we started with a single office serving Jewish refugees, helping them to transition to the American workplace and help them to navigate the American workplace. Today, fast forward, and we serve about 30,000 people we welcome to our different program offices. There are about 20 or so of them across LA County and even into San Bernardino, Orange County. We are serving people from all communities. So regardless of your background, race, religion, we are serving all the populations. That includes immigrants and refugees from all over the world. That includes veterans, youth, the LGBTQ community, re-entry, and more. And so our focus is building a job-ready workforce, and we do that with doing career guidance and mentoring, our employer partners, and also our career training programs. And I'd say we've been able to grow that impact with the support of our public and private partnerships.
Perfect. So now that we've set the stage in terms of who our panelists are and why their work matters to this entire economy as a whole, you see the range of folks here, right, representing the civic organizations that are so impactful to the education institutions and the talent development system to the corporation. So in your intro, you actually already took away some of the first talking points, but I actually want to emphasize a little bit and go into a bit deeper so the audience can get a better sense in terms of exactly what that pathway looks like. Because I think it'll be great for us to really get a clear understanding in terms of how do we start thinking through in order for us to build a competitive workforce of the future and make sure that this region continues to be competitive. What are some of the successes and programs which we'll get back to? We'll jump around a little bit. So Kim, why don't we go back to you first? As you're working, as you're talking about the services that JVS SoCal provides, can you give us a bit more context in terms of from your organization's perspective, when it comes to workforce development, where do you want to focus on? How do you create your programs, and where do you prioritize your resources?
So when it comes to like workforce development, I kind of think of one of the areas that JVS focuses on is people who maybe just have a high school diploma. Maybe they're not interested in going to a four-year institution, or maybe they have, but life and things have come up in the way and they're starting and reimagining and re-envisioning their careers. So one of the areas that we work in is our career training programs. And one of the programs that I was talking about is our Imaging Works program. And that is, again, our first, we have several JVS Works career training program, but that program in particular is a learn and earn model. And the way that came about, just kind of quickly, is that we are already doing a career training program that was preparing people to be patient service reps. That brought us into placing people at RadNet. That was one of the employer partners of many that we started to place people with. And so they got to know a program, they got to know the quality of the people who were being placed at their work site. And we had about maybe 40 people that were placed with them. So then we got to know their organization better, they got to know us better, and as they got to know JVS, then they came to us and said, hey, there's a need, we really need to have DEXA certified positions filled. So how can we do this together? And so then from that partnership, then it took us, at least probably a year. This takes time to then work with them. What is it that they need? What kinds of skills are they looking for? What does the certification require? And bringing our team together with their team and really putting our heads together and partnering. And that's been successful. We had our first graduating class in December, and we had 36 graduates, and we had 28 people completed the program, and 23 of those were placed immediately into employment at their sites. So that's just one of the ways.
That's great. I'm going to skip over to Cynthia for a sec. Cynthia, Urban League is one of the most important civic organizations throughout Southern California, and under your leadership, as you're mentioning, the focus is not traditional in South LA anymore because LA's diversity is so expansive. Tell us a little bit more about the types of work. We know you have partnerships with Intuit and other folks. Tell us about those programs that are successful in terms of being able to reach the target audience that you're looking for.
We're so delighted to have this private-public partnership with Intuit. It was a partnership that we explored about a year and a half ago. And coming from the Los Angeles Urban League, we knew that it was important to continue conversations with corporations. And knowing that corporations needed to expand their base as well across being ethnically diverse. And so when coming to the Los Angeles Urban League, we designed a program that we knew for small businesses. Many small businesses of color don't have all the resources that they need. Some don't have back rooms. And what we mean by back rooms, the accounting. They don't have the clerical support. They do not have the ability to have certain mailers and all kinds of intricate backroom activities. So we partnered with Intuit, about a $500,000 initial investment that would look at 25 small businesses in Los Angeles by which we recruited. And that was very diverse by which we did that. We gave them business counseling. We gave them the full suite of Intuit's hardware and software, as well as giving them at the completion $25,000 to each small business. I am so proud to say that in 9 months, I repeat, 9 months, there was a 19% increase in revenue in this combined services. We now have expanded that to Atlanta and Philadelphia under the governance of the Los Angeles Urban League. So now we have 100 businesses. But it goes to show that when you give businesses, especially businesses of color, an opportunity to raise the bar and to have access, look what can happen. We had 100% graduation rate. And we are now 1.3 million in the 3 cities. And so I'm very proud of that one. I call that my baby.
Well, congratulations on that amazing program. As Cynthia was mentioning, I also want to thank LA Urban League for taking the initiative to really focus on the small business sector. A lot of folks don't know that in Los Angeles County, 94% of all our companies in Los Angeles County have less than 20 employees, 94%. And these 94% of companies employ about half of our entire workforce. So when it comes to workforce development, small business is a huge driver that sometimes people don't understand. And so the work that you're doing right now, when partnership with Intuit, is allowing these businesses to continue to expand and grow so they can hire more individuals. So that focus area is so important.
Thank you, and that is a program that's going to scale. We're moving into an additional 3 states in July.
Excellent. Speaking of partnerships, Eric, can I go back to what you're mentioning, the distinction between UCLA Extension and UCLA? Sometimes people don't know the difference. If you can go into a bit more detail that you mentioned already. But as you're moving forward in terms of the work that UCLA Extension is able to do is the ability to work with organizations and change your curriculum and develop your curriculum in a way that's matching the needs. Can you go into a bit more detail so the audience understands how do we work more closely with UCLA Extension?
Yeah, sure, thanks. I've been in this position for just over 5 years, and again, storied history, over 108-year-old institution doing great things for that 108 years. The one thing I think that we do really well, though, is that we have amazing faculty at our main campus, and in some cases they teach in our programs. We're part of the Academic Senate, so we're considered a professional school at UCLA. But the one thing that really distinguishes us is that we hire people that are actually employed full-time in the professions for which we're training them to go into. And so it's really important that we partner with businesses, with industry, to make sure that the voice of business is there. Because we want to hear from you. We want to understand what it is that you need to be successful as either a business owner or somebody that oversees a governmental agency or a nonprofit. And so each of our programs, we have over 100 programs offered through UCLA Extension. Each program is required to have an advisory board. And on these advisory boards, we invite not only CEOs and community leaders, but HR directors and others to participate in the curriculum development process and to make sure that, again, that voice is heard. The instructors themselves, if you look at our portfolio, they're just these amazing individuals that have passion for the industries that they serve in. Most of them are not coming here because they want to become millionaires. They're not coming here because they want to earn necessarily even an extra paycheck. They're coming because they want to give back to Los Angeles. And so we're very proud of that fact that if you look across our programs, we have very high completion rates, and then we have these amazing mentors that our students learn from. So that's one major way in which we really differ from the main campus.
I also want to highlight the pathways and the option that UCLA Extension gives. On a very personal note, actually, for some of you who know me, I'm a social worker by training. And before I went back to UCLA to get my degree in social work, I had to make sure that this is what I want. And that's what Kevin was mentioning in terms of upskilling, right? Understanding. But you don't know what that path truly is. So I actually took a UCLA Extension course on child psychology and child welfare in order for me to really commit myself to it. And that option of actually understanding the exploration of future career options could be so important as we're moving forward, because right now the pathways are not quite clear. Good for the folks that's like, you know what, I'm going to be a doctor or going to be an engineer, that they know their path. But there are many of us who have to test things along the way.
Yeah, I would say you're absolutely right. And I think unlike in the past where individuals would spend 20, 30, 40 years in the same place and the same career, we don't see that today. And I think as a result, people really do look at institutions like ours or other community colleges or other institutions of higher education to help them upskill, retrain. It's so critically important. And I just think of a story of one of our recent alums. He had a really compelling story. He was a very successful attorney, a graduate from Berkeley, double grad from Berkeley, and so came to us during the pandemic he wanted to become a producer. And so he took our screenwriting and producing programs, and now he's actually pivoted his entire career, retired from being an attorney, and has actually screenplays and all sorts of things happening, Netflix shows, and it's just a way, just demonstrating that the programs that we have in a short period of time, people can come here, get retrained, and start a whole new career. And I think that's the modern way that people look at education, just-in-time education.
Randall, you were mentioning your employee number 5 at Cordova, and you were able to grow all the way across. Amazing career path. And as Cordova continues to expand, can you talk a little bit from a private sector perspective in terms of the importance of workforce development, in terms of what the needs are from a private corporation so that civic serving organizations, education institutions can develop better programs to match the needs of the private sector?
Sure, thank you. And thank you to BizFed for hosting this and inviting me back. I participated in a water forum a couple of years ago and appreciate the nod to get invited back to be here today. I want to point out that Cordova is a family-owned, privately held company, to your point about small business. We compete against very large conglomerate worldwide companies. Many are publicly traded companies. And the difference between a community-based, family-owned business versus a publicly traded company, among other things, is we don't have stockholders and dividend calls that we need to adhere to that drive our every decision. And that's unique to a local business. And whatever type of public policy we can do to continue to support local business, the better for everyone. One good example of this is we're active in the municipal market space in 4 different areas, all public infrastructure. Our work is fairly technical, civil engineering, architectural services. And for the longest time, we had thought that in order to compete against these big brand names, we had to recruit the brightest kids from the best institutions. And we were really hung up on Ivy League for a long time. And what we realized is that everybody in the industry was hung up on Ivy League at that time. And we had to learn the workforce better that we needed to target. And one of the areas I want to target or talk about today is We then made it a point to reach out to various universities and better understand their engineering programs, become mentors, participate, help shape curriculum, and ultimately recruit. And that was a great way for us to expand our workforce and bring in opportunities. It started with Stanford University, the Graduate School of Civil and Environmental Engineering. And we have formal relationships with UCLA Luskin School of Public Policy, USC School of Engineering, and a few others. And what we learned along the way is each engineering school has a different personality, if you will, that the type of qualified candidates that they provide are different from school to school. For example, Stanford University, maybe because it's a graduate school and the students tend to have work experience before going to graduate school, really emphasized on providing leaders and folks that were ready to step in a leadership role. But we didn't need that all the time. And what we found, what we needed was folks that understood, that were solid in things like math and understood production. And we found that at Cal State Fullerton, Cal Poly Pomona, and UC Merced in particular. And we've had great success with our outreach to universities and in particular there. And that has really worked for our benefit, and the investment of time and money we did to expand our view really paid off.
This next question actually goes to all of you, and please feel free to jump in. I think all of you in some way talked about partnerships. Cynthia particularly mentioned private partnership with Intuit. Can you give other examples, success stories of partnerships, and so that the audience understands, how did you come up with these partnerships? Where did they come from? So how do we replicate those processes of successful partnerships? So please feel free to jump in anyway.
Oh, sure. I mean, we have lots of different partnerships, and one that comes to mind, because there's a gentleman sitting in front of me that runs the program, that's our technical management program, but we've been doing that for 70 years now. But Boeing Corporation is a great example. So Boeing and the aerospace industry, for many decades now, we've partnered with them, and it's a great example of where they came to us and said, we have a really particular need, and we need to train our engineers to become better managers. And so we worked with them over the last 70 years as a strategic partner to make sure that the curriculum, again, is updated to their standard. And there's lots of other folks, Northrop Grumman and others that are based in Los Angeles. But that's just one example of many that we have here where, again, it's so important for us because the difference for us is that we don't want to assume that because we're a public research university that we know better than industry and our partners, that we still need to have that collaboration back and forth and hearing from the workforce, the employers, what they actually need.
I'd like to say, it's really multi-didactic in its approach. You have to be able to look at all the industries. And so the Los Angeles Urban League is very proud to say that we kind of cross-pollinate. So it goes through the full continuum. So we have partnerships with Southern Cal Gas. That partnership is in our construction. And so it works with our apprenticeships. We have partnerships with the healthcare, UCLA, although I'm a Trojan. Tech hasn't come on board yet. That's all right. We're here with you.
We appreciate that.
You got that. And it's a great program. Healthcare, working to train nurses aides and CNAs. We have partnerships with a Backstage program that looks at the back room, again, I say the back room of film and the industry of entertainment. So it's with Paramount and CAA, and we work to get folks behind the cameras in what we call below the line positions. And then we have partnerships with Amazon, an opportunity to get kids and internships and see how we can work further with apprenticeships. So we're really are very diverse in how we look at partnerships. But I'd like to state also, it's not just about the workforce development. There's a question that he hasn't asked yet, but that will be about grant funding. So we look at these partnerships kind of two-pronged. How can we bridge or build our communities through their funding, give them a win-win with their workforce, and build our communities? So it's really a triad, and that's our approach that we work. So not just merely funding, but partnerships, and then building the workforce as well. So it's, again, multi-didactic.
Fight on, Cynthia, fight on.
That's a Trojan answer, wasn't it?
Wait, it's go Bruin.
I'd like to offer a perspective from the private sector. In the private sector, oftentimes we have to look in the mirror to figure out how best to prepare ourselves so that we could ask for collaboration. And at Cordova Corporation, we certainly did that. I want to acknowledge two of my colleagues that are here today. They'll be available for questions afterwards. Andra Armstrong and Erica Avina, who run a program that I'd like to highlight. Right around the year 2020, when there was the George Floyd murder and incident, there were many firms and companies and corporations that were making very glossy policy statements about standing against police brutality and embracing diversity and being there for the common man. And we listened to that. We thought, as a firm that operates in the public sector, we needed to do more than just a glossy corporate statement. And keeping in mind that we also wanted to enhance and develop our workforce as well, we decided that the best way to help everybody, including ourselves, was to give people a job, a good paying job. And let's target communities and collaborate with communities within our company, within our network, to figure out how to do that. And one of our employees, she and her husband run a church in a community. And we partnered with her and her church, she's here today, Andra, to help us develop what we call a Pathways program to identify at-risk individuals who might be in community college, not really working towards a degree or a certificate, but at least have shown that initiative. And maybe with a little bit of guidance, direction, mentoring, and a job, we could help them get there. And the there could eventually be a long-term employment with Cordova. So we developed a program where we identified and recruited and brought on 10 people to work in our program. And the moment that they started the program, they were hired as a Cordova employee. So they were paid a salary, and they were W-2 employees, so they were given the same benefits that I get as so that it could help them make it through the training program. It was a 12-month training program with a terrific curriculum with resources identified to help coach them through. At the end of our first year, 6 successfully graduated and are employed by Cordova. We've since had a second year of cohorts. We had 6, I believe, participate, and all 6 have graduated and are employed by Cordova. And we're about to start our 3rd cohort. And we feel pretty good that we figured this out, that it works. We've invested our retained earnings and we see the investment coming back. And now I think we might be at the point where we're ready to reach out to organizations, possibly like BizFed, to see if there's a way that we can scale up this organization to have a greater impact now that we know how to make it work within our firm.
So I would just add, in terms of partnerships and how is it that we develop partnerships, one of the things that helps us is that JVS SoCal operates several of the America's Job Centers of California, which is WIOA funds, and it's with the County of Los Angeles and the City of Los Angeles. And through that, we actually can offer, we have business service representatives. They go out into the community, they reach out to the businesses and employer partners to find out what they need, and we help to recruit. We can offer free, job recruitments and job fairs and things of resources to help understand more what they want. So that's one way of kind of getting to know the different employer partners, starting to get to know who they are and what they need. And as we learn more what they need, then sometimes it comes through us. We have proprietary training programs. They work in banking, and that works in healthcare. We have a number of different healthcare-oriented programs. We also have apartment maintenance programs. But we don't limit ourselves just to the proprietary programs that we have. We want to understand what the broader needs are and make those connections to the community colleges or to other training providers. And fortunately, again, through grants, funding, resources, then we're able to make those connections. And that's how we try to bring it all together. It all takes time.
So thank you for setting up for the next question, which is a grant question. But before we go there, I'm going to talk about some of the topics and some of the points that you guys touched on, which ties back to the industry aspect, right? As we're looking at funding opportunities and let's be honest, funding challenges that might be coming down. You're mentioning WIOA. So for those of you who are not familiar, Workforce Investment Opportunity Act, federal funding that goes through the state and goes to the local government and basically funnels down to a lot of the partners to do that work, but with some, let's say, uncertainty in terms of how funding will operate. What is the strategy that we should be taking on? What are some of the success stories, but also what are the thinking as we're moving forward in order for us to be able to secure the funding that's necessary for this region? Because look, workforce development training costs money. It's not going to be easy to do, because to identify the workers, to basically match them with potential career paths, and to be able to engage with employers to develop the curriculum, it doesn't come magically. You have to basically have investing with those resources. So again, open to all. Can you jump in a little bit to talk about what are the grant success stories that you guys have seen before? What are some of the challenges, and how do we attack it in the future? Cynthia?
Well, I'll start with some of the grant opportunities. We were very fortunate, as when I first started, I've only been here as president for about a year. And when I looked and assessed the different types of funding, and just to your point, we know that funding can go away any moment. And so at that moment, I approached appropriations. And so that was one way to stabilize funding. It definitely is not the end all, but it is one way to execute very quickly certain populations within the workforce development. We were able to secure about $1 million to service a population by which I always often say is underserved and forgotten, and that's foster children, and how we will help them work themselves into the workforce development and to assist them. But then looking at other ways to diversify your funding, going into private funding, going into foundations, and really talking, when we say private-public partnerships, that's truly what it has to be. Everyone must be accountable. We know moving into this administration, we're seeing cuts every day. And just 2 weeks ago, many of us were scrambling when we opened up and saw that our federal contracts could be immediately canceled. We knew what that meant. But unfortunately, I don't know if many of us were ready for the game plan, if we were all honest with each other. So this is something that we must take very seriously. We must do it collectively, and I don't think it's a placebo right now. I think it's going to look like something that we've never had to do before. So that would be my advice to this.
I think I'll just add, I mean, we have examples of grants, and I think the importance of the grants is that, to your point, they really help us serve underrepresented populations. And so since I've taken on this role, that's been one of the paramount things that we focused on, is serving more Angelinos and making sure that this public research university that's in Westwood isn't just up on a hill and not accessible to people that live and work in Los Angeles. So that's one important thing. I won't get into all the details of the grants, but something that Stephen, you did years ago that struck me as being really critically important, that I think everyone in the room should probably hear, and something that LAADC does really well, is serve as a convener. I think coming together and making sure that we're working on grant opportunities and working on advocacy and educating people in Washington, D.C., people in the state legislature, the governor. I think part of the problem with Los Angeles is that we're so large and expansive and diverse that sometimes our story gets lost. And so I really think, for this audience and for everyone here, the more that we can work together, the stronger that we'll be as a community, the more that we'll actually be able to bring those grants and those funds back to Los Angeles.
But I'd also like to say something on that. The word collaboration has been used for years, and we don't do that as well in Los Angeles. We tend to cross each other out, because I'm not sure why.
That's exactly right.
I'm not sure why. But if we're going to succeed in Los Angeles as the stellar city that we are, in this paradigm shift, we must all stick together. And Stephen and I have talked before in terms of what can we do, how do we bring each other together, and not just using the word collaboration, but really being about it, and not ostracizing certain groups that may be able to accentuate, because we know what the executive order said. So everybody is going to have to redevise even how we market our programs, how we talk about them, and who you actually have at the table. And lastly, it's not about just having somebody at the table because of what their origin may be or what their culture may be, but really what services can be developed and how we can all win at this game, not just monetarily.
I would offer to that last point, in the case of Cordova, this has all been self-funded, and third year going on the fourth year, it's several hundreds of thousands of dollars that we've invested in this. And we found that by creating 15, going on 20 employees, those are employees that we did not have to pay headhunter fees for. So after a while, there's an it makes economic sense. And the better we can capture that so that private business can come to the table. At the end of the day, these employees are going to be hired by private business. They will benefit from that. So the more we could think through how to reimagine the program, the better, especially based on facts.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with everything that all of you have said in terms of it's definitely a business decision. You know, the partnership that we have with RadNet is a business decision. The fact that it's an earn and learn is because they need to fill that pipeline. Every time that their machines aren't working, that's costing them money every day. So it's important for them to find a partner to go and do that, fill that skill set. In terms of like funding model, I agree with what everyone said. For us, I would say, you know, government funding tends to be sort of a little bit of a foundational thing. You know that you're going to get 2 to 3 year grants out of that. They tend to be a little longer term. So it's worth trying to get into that space, kind of starting at the county, kind of going from the city, and then, you know, it's tougher getting into the federal government, which right now maybe isn't even all that great, given what we're dealing with. But I would say then the other place, there's like 2 other areas I really think about. Our employer partners. Usually they actually help pay into the program. So the different industries that we're targeting, those employer partners are part of our roundtable. They also pay into the program. And then our private funders, like you were saying, foundations and things of that nature. When we're starting new programs, innovation, that's it. I mean, we've been very fortunate and lucky, you know, $500,000 grants, $1 million grants to start new programs. It takes that much to get things going. So.
A lot of great thoughts there. I want to summarize a little bit so that we can take away some action, right? What I'm hearing is that, one, we have to really look at different sources of funding. We can't just rely on one single source to diversify your funding. But in order for you to diversify funding, whether it's with private partners, whether it's with governmental partners or philanthropy, you really need to establish those relationships. And in terms of establishing those relationships, another thing that Cynthia I want to go back to in terms of that collaborative aspect is that we need to come together. And Eric, you're absolutely right. Sometimes when we are competing for grants, we cancel each other out. You have, you know, Pomona applying for a grant against Pacoima, against Pasadena, against, where are the other piece? Give me the Palisades and then the Palos Verdes, right? And eventually people around outside of this region, they don't know the difference. It's LA. So how do we come together to do that? And that collaborative effort is going to take time. This actually sets up for the next kind of conversation. I was expecting Blake to come get me, but actually I had the big boss come get me. So Kevin told me it's time to go. So with that said, I do want to say that a lot of things that you guys mentioned actually ties in with something that Kevin was mentioning earlier, which is the California Jobs First process that the governor's office, and later on you'll hear from Derek as well, in terms of that investment from the state of California, allowing a lot of the folks here I see are from the CJF process. So thank you all for your leadership there. I see Hapen, I see Stella, I see Sharon, and especially Maria, who is a partner, California Community Foundation and LADC, been working together to really support this coalition that's now 700-800 partners combined together. This is the first time in a long time that Los Angeles has the ability, through investment from the governor's office in the state, to allow us to start working through these very vast geographic region and diverse representation, right? We have 140 nationalities represented here. We speak 224 languages. We have 80 different cities, over 100 incorporated regions. So a lot of folks outside, it's like, why can't you guys be like more like Missoula and come up with one single brand? We have 10 million people. It's not going to be the same. So it's going to take some 9.5 in the future. Let's hope we can correct that. So with that said, we really need to work collaboratively together so that we can join forces, so that we can compete for funding, not only just tapping into the local resources, but state and nationally, because we've seen with the wildfires, the attention that we're able to draw from national and international approach. The question is basically how do we take this opportunity to work together? So with that, for those of you who have joined my panels before, the hard-hitting question is going to come now. I'm going to save you for last, Eric, for this because it's a hard-hitting question. What do you love about UCLA the most? For those Trojan fans as well, I'm not gonna. What do you like? Let's spread it out, not just UCLA. We'll take out the UC part. As we're moving forward in terms of folks looking at wildfire and looking at recovery, a lot of folks are actually confused because they get the advertising. They're like, "Oh my God, LA's on fire. We can't come here because all of LA has burnt." So we need to start telling the story that LA is open for business, that this diverse community that's coming together is so powerful that you guys need to continue to work with us. So if you're telling our international audience or national audience why they should bet on LA, what are the things that you would like to say to our audience?
I would say that we've got the best beaches, we've got the best weather, and amazing international food. You gotta get here.
I would say we have Olympics and Paralympics and Super Bowls and All-Star games all coming here in the next few years, and we have to get it together, and we will.
I would say that we're resilient, we're strong, we will rebuild better than ever, and we will restore, and that's Los Angeles, and we are the baddest in the country.
I kind of want to go back to the UCLA. No, but in seriousness, for LA, I think we have some of the most amazing museums and entertainment venues in the world. I think that we're the innovation capital of the world, in my view, and we have so much amazing things going on. For UCLA, though, it's our amazing alumni. I mean, look at them and all the stuff they're doing, like Steven. So anyway, no, seriously, it's LA is such an amazing place, and even though this is not my home through birth, I'm not a native Angelino, it's a place that I always tell everyone there's no other place like it on earth, and I've traveled to more than 50 countries in my career and life, and I just think it's such an amazing place, a special place, and it represents all of the greatness of the United States. So come join us.
Thank you. I hope the audience have learned what we're working on in terms of workforce development and what we need to do in the future. We really need to unite together. So thank you. Please help me thank the panel. President Bachelder, thank you for having us. 11:15, our time is up. Thank you.
Now that was just awesome, folks. Thank you all, because we covered a lot of the key areas that we're going to be focusing on. Our work with California Jobs First has been exhausting. And, we talked about aerospace, transportation / goods movement, healthcare, life science, motion picture, construction, the need for collaboration. You hear that, Derek? Collaboration. And the funding program.